Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is a very special one because I'm going to be collabing with my friend Kaylin. We figured out which eyeshadow palettes we both have in our makeup collections, and today's video is going to be showing you our least and most favorite shades from each palette. If you are not already following my friend Kaylin, you absolutely should. I know you would all love her content. She does Project Pan videos, she does lots of eyeshadow focused content, especially colorful eyeshadow and making colorful eyeshadow very wearable and approachable. And she is super sweet, and I'm so excited that we are finally getting to collab. We actually have 10 palettes in common, a nice round number, and I'm so excited to see which shades are her favorite and least favorite, because though I feel like we have similar makeup styles, the colors that we both tend to pull for are sometimes very different. Like, for example, I know she loves pink eyeshadow, and pink eyeshadow is not necessarily my favorite on me, although you've caught me wearing pink today, of course. So I think it's going to be really fun to compare, and hopefully you all can get two different perspectives on some of these palettes, many of which you might already have in your collection as well. So starting off with a bang, we both had the Blueberry Muffin palette from BH Cosmetics. What a classic. Truly some of the best, most affordable eyeshadows that have ever been on the market. I'm so sad that BH Cosmetics is no more and you can no longer get this palette. It does have the holographic packaging, so it might be a little bit distracting for you, but so many beautiful blue, periwinkle, and neutral shades in this palette. I'm gonna start with the positive. My absolute favorite shade in this palette has to be Tempting, which is one of the blue shimmers. It is such a special shade in my collection. I think you'll be able to see it from the swatch just how reflective this shade is. And it's actually really cool. It's got like a black base to it. It definitely has bright blue pigment in it. But if you look closely, it actually has some like purpley pink sparkles to it. And the result on the eye is just so mesmerizing and impactful. I absolutely love this shade, and it's definitely unlike any other blue that I have in my collection. You can even see, as I just kind of move my hand in the light, how it reflects and kind of shifts even a little bit. It is just so pretty and so special, and I feel like it's like the namesake of this palette to me. When I think of this palette, I definitely think of this shade. On the other hand, a shade that I could really take or leave from this palette that is definitely my least favorite is this shade here called Baker's Dozen. I guess this is supposed to be a shimmer, but it reminds me a lot of those ColourPop like sequin shades. They're like mattes that have glitter in them. It's got like multicolor sparkles in it, but it's not enough to make an impact, and it's not enough for me to consider this a shimmer or a metallic on the eye. So it's kind of like, what's the point of having that glitter in there? Like, I wish it would have just been like a matte black or even like a matte really dark blue. I functionally still use it that way, and I feel like the glitter just kind of brushes away. But it's kind of a disappointing shade either way, because if you're expecting like really pretty shimmer and sparkle, you're going to be left disappointed. But if you're expecting like a really richly pigmented, deep dark black matte deepening shade, you're also going to be disappointed because that glitter is in there. So that one's kind of a dud. The rest of the shades in this palette I feel like are all really good though. That's the only one that I'm sort of like, I kind of wish it wasn't in there, or I kind of wish they had just replaced it with a matte. We also both had the BH Cosmetics Avocado Toast palette, which is another classic, another gorgeous color story. Even though I think of this palette and I immediately associate it with green, it actually has quite a bit of variation in here. Like, you have some like pinky, warmer shades. You have this like teal kind of corner down here, and then you have these yellows as well. Starting with the positive again, my favorite shade in this palette, although it was very close between a few, I have to give it to Extra, which is this deepest green shimmer down at the bottom here. Actually kind of similar to the shade Tempting in the Blueberry Muffin palette. This is just such a reflective, richly pigmented, metallic shade that catches the light so beautifully. I think it has a similar kind of dark base underneath it, like the shade Tempting. And again, when I move my hand in the light, you can just see how it reflects the light, and it's so, so pretty on the eyes. I love the way this sits perfectly in between a cool green and a warm green. Like even as I'm looking in the viewfinder, the side closest to the light is reflecting back a warm green, and this side is reflecting back more of a cool kind of teal green. You get this really beautiful forest green that's just really straddling the line between cool and warm, which means you can pair it with some of the warmer greens in this palette, like these right here in the middle, or some of the cooler greens like a teal, or even leaning more in like the blue direction. So that one I just feel like is such a special green in my collection. A shade that I really don't like, that's definitely my least favorite in this palette, is the shade Lemon Pepper. I guess I just don't really know what this shade is supposed to be. It seems like they were going for something in between like a yellow, like a really light yellow shimmer, a gold, and a light green, but I kind of wish they had just made it one of those things. Like if it was a true yellow, like the shade Over Easy with shimmer, I feel like I would like it more. Or if it was a true gold, at least I would know like what to do with it. And then if it had been like a lime, like a really bright lime green, that would have been a perfect inner corner shade for some of these other greens. But I just don't find this shade to be particularly flattering. It almost looks like a dirty cream kind of a shade, at least on my skin tone, which can look a little bit chalky. I have found ways to use it by layering it over some of the other shades in this palette, but as far as this palette goes, it's pretty solid. The only one that really sticks out as one that I find difficult to use or just don't really love the exact tone of is definitely Lemon Pepper. The next palette that Kaylin and I have in common is the Glamlight Barbie Dream Summer palette. This one was difficult for me to pick a least favorite, I have to say. I love this palette. It is such a good quality formula in this palette. The color story is so fun and just gives me endless inspiration, and I just feel like this palette was really, really well executed. If I had to pick a favorite, which again, this was tough, I think I have to go with the shade Born Ready. This is such a beautiful cross in between a light baby blue and a light periwinkle purple kind of shade. It's got like this beautiful, almost like warm purple base with a ton of baby blue and kind of really light teal sparkles in it. I love how icy this is. I love how it reflects light. Depending on what you pair it with, it can go more purple or more blue. I even feel like there's some green sparkles in here. It just has all of the most beautiful like unicorn shifts. And this is the kind of purple shade that I absolutely love. We're gonna get to some purples that I don't love as much. In fact, my least favorite shade in this palette is actually another purple, which is this shade right here called Let's Roll. I am coming to the realization that I don't love like a true Barney the Dinosaur purple. I don't know, it's giving like Welch's grape juice. When a purple is just like on the nose purple like that, I just don't love it for some reason. And I also, in reality, I'm probably not gonna reach for that deep of a shimmer. Even if I am doing like a true purple look, I would probably just reach for this purple matte down here rather than a deep purple shimmer. That being said, I've used the shade Let's Roll in several looks and it always comes out fine. Just that there's so many other absolutely gorgeous shades in this palette that one kind of falls to the wayside for me. Watch all of my least favorite shades be Kay's favorite shades and vice versa. I honestly would not put that past us. Then we have the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde palette. Again, this one was kind of tough. I was definitely between a few shades for my favorite and between a few for my least favorite. I think that my favorite shade in this palette might actually surprise some of you because it's leaning into the peachy realm, but I actually picked Galaxy as my hinge of the lid just broke. How sad. I guess it's kind of to be expected though, because this palette is a little bit older. The shade that I picked as my favorite is the shade Galaxy, which is, it just does that thing that I love where it sits right in between cool and warm. It's kind of a peach, but it's got enough of a champagne to it that I feel like it's not leaning into warm orange territory, and it's just such a beautiful way to amp up my skin tone, basically. I know of all the fun colors in this palette, that might be kind of a boring pick, but just to be honest, whenever I wear the shade Galaxy, I really love the way that my eyes look, and I feel like it just gives a really beautiful kind of glam but still refined look to the eyes. My least favorite in this palette, there were a few that I was considering, but then I swatched them. I was gonna say Nebula, which is this middle blue shade right here, just because it does have like a drier, kind of rougher texture, but I swatched it and it's just so stunning. Same with Supermoon, because it has more of like a flaky, piecey texture, but when you swatch it and it kind of melts into your skin, it just looks so pretty. So the one that I ultimately decided is my least favorite is Mercury, which is this shade right here. It's basically a less good version of the shade Tempting from the BH Blueberry Muffin palette. It has the dark base, it has the blue glitter in it, but it doesn't have the same kind of richness. It feels very thin, and because of that, it can look kind of patchy on the eyes, and the glitter particles end up being unevenly distributed. It just doesn't pack quite the same punch as the shade from the BH Cosmetics palette. Now, my palette is obviously older, it just broke, so it might just be that that shade has majorly dried out for me, but I don't remember ever loving the way that that shade applied. It just never had the same kind of show-stopping sparkle as some of the other shades in this palette. Another Huda palette that we both had was the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz. Again, picking a favorite in here was a struggle. There are so many beautiful shades in here that I absolutely love and adore. I ended up settling on the shade Moon Magic as my favorite, just because this shade entrances me every time I swatch it, wear it, see it on other people. It is just the most beautiful unicorn, iridescent oyster shell kind of a shade that shifts from purple to blue to pink, and it just looks so, so pretty as an inner corner shade or sheared out all over the lid. Such a special shade for a mainstream brand, and it might come as no surprise, but I did pick the shade Lovestone, the weird like petri dish shade, as my least favorite in this palette. Honestly, it's not as bad as I think some people make it out to be. It does still have a cool kind of iridescence to it, similar to the shade Moon Magic. You can see that it does try to shift blue and purple and pink. I think it's just the like weird jelly cream texture of it that makes me not really want to use it. It's probably expired well before the rest of the palette. I don't know how eye safe it is anymore. I did use it previously as like a glitter primer for some of the shades in here to stick to, and I feel like that worked fine. But again, if this had been replaced with another shade, maybe like a true brown matte, because the browns up here tend to lean very pinky, even like another one of these just magnificent shimmers, it would have been better. But overall, I don't have too many complaints about this palette. It's one of my top favorite palettes in my collection. Next up, we both have the Natasha Denona My Dream palette. I don't know, this might be predictable, but my favorite shade in this palette is definitely the multi-chrome called Vision. As far as mainstream multi-chromes go, I think it's pretty good. I know it can't touch like indie multi-chromes, but I still really, really love the shade. Not sure how well you're going to be able to see it in the swatch, but it flips from like an olive green to a kind of magenta with some gold middle of the way through. I know it's not the best multi-chrome shadow the beauty world has ever seen, but I do have fun when I play with it, and that's why it's my favorite. Least favorite in this palette has to be the shade Edgy. I don't like the Natasha Denona cream to powder formula, even on a good day. But especially in a palette like this, where I really want to play up the magenta purple that's in that multi-chrome shade, I want there to be a deep purple. And if she had just made this her regular matte formula, it would have been. But because it's this cream to powder formula, it's just not pigmented. It's basically the exact same color as the other cream to powder, which is the shade Instinct, which is a brighter magenta. There's very, very little difference between the two shades. I really wanted Edgy to be a perfect deep dark purple deepening shade, and it just looks like another bright magenta. So very disappointing. I really wish that that had just been her regular matte formula. Why the cream to powders, Natasha? I know a lot of people like them, and I'm probably in the minority, but I do not like the cream to powders from Natasha Denona. And it stained my hand. Perfect. Kaylin and I both clearly like Odin's Eye because we have 3 Odin's Eye palettes in common. The first being the Hella palette with Angelica Nyqvist. Never getting over this packaging. Never getting over it. It's so good. My favorite shade in this palette is 110,000% the shade River down here. This is just the most beautiful multi-chrome shade. I think it's multi-chrome. Could be duochrome, but I think it's supposed to be multi-chrome. Or is it duochrome? I'm not sure, but it is stunning. It reminds me a little bit of the shade I showed you all from the Glamlight Barbie Dream Summer palette, where it has a purple that shifts to blue, that shifts to green, but this one is just even a little bit more nuanced. It's got like a warm, rusty red base to it, and it is just the most beautiful, reflective, shifty shade ever. It can look almost like a neutral on the eyes. You can almost kind of see, from what I'm seeing in the viewfinder there, it reflects back almost like champagne in some lights. If you pair it with pinks and purples, it's going to lean more that direction. I don't think I've ever actually paired this with blues and greens, but I think that would be really, really beautiful as well. Just an absolutely stunning shade, and definitely a big standout in my opinion from this palette. My least favorite in this palette is probably going to offend some of you, not least of all Kaylin, who probably loves this shade, but I'm not a big fan of the shade Hellfire. It's just not really to my taste in terms of the color. It's a very peachy pink. It's still the gorgeous, creamy Odin's Eye formula. There's nothing wrong with the shade. I just am not a huge fan of peaches on me. If it had a little bit more nuance to it, a little bit more of a neutral undertone like the shade Galaxy from the Mercury Retrograde palette, I would probably love it. But because it's so just peachy, I feel like it clashes with my skin tone and washes me out, and can sometimes even look a little bit chalky on me. But I think that's a me thing. I don't think that's the eyeshadow thing. But out of all the other gorgeous shades in this palette, the shade Hellfire is just not the one that, for me, I'm going to be reaching for. FYI, that Natasha Denona cream to powder did actually stain my hand. So maybe something to be aware of. Next up, we have the Odin's Eye Flores Story palette in collaboration with Makeup Just for Fun. I really, really love this palette. There are a lot of shades in here that are very, very close to being my favorite, but I do think I have to give it to the shade Misty, just because it's such a nuanced green tone. I love that it's a kind of mid-tone with a lot of icy reflect to it. I love that you can see the saginess of the undertone, but it also has some blue sparkles and silver sparkles. I just think this is such a unique shade in my collection because it's not quite mint, it's not quite lime, it's not quite teal. It kind of sits in the middle of all of those shades, and it is super duper sparkly, which is also super pretty and definitely makes me feel like a Forest Fairy, which is sort of the theme of the palette. It will probably come as a surprise to no one that my least favorite shade in this palette is actually the shade Orchid. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's on the nose purple. Again, the formula is beautiful. It's that velvety Odin's Eye matte formula. I just feel like the rest of the palette is so muted and nuanced that I wanted this to be a little bit more smoky, a little bit more taupey, maybe a little bit more on the mauve side of purple, kind of like this, its counterpart here in the shade Azalea. This is such a unique purple shade because it's not square on lilac or periwinkle. It's got this kind of gray muted softness to it, and I really, really wish that the shade Orchid just had a touch of gray added to it, or I don't know, just something to make it a little bit less obvious purple. The purple shimmer in this palette, Magnolia, is exactly that. It's got a kind of, I don't know, it's got like a warmth to the base and a coolness to the shimmer, and it's just a really unique purple. I can show you that one here. Do you see what I mean? It's got like a silveriness to it that makes it a really, really special shade of purple. I just really wish that the shade Orchid was a little bit more special. That's my own prejudices though against that particular shade of purple. It definitely works with the palette and it's definitely a taste thing, but it's gotta be my least favorite. Kaylin and I also both have the SeaTalk palette, which is from the same collection from Odin's Eye. This one is from Lauren from, why am I blanking on her name? Lauren May Beauty. Duh. Again, this one's gorgeous. I had a really hard time picking a least favorite in this one. My favorite is definitely split between the shade Electric Kelp, which is this beautiful chartreusey lime green. It's not flat matte. It's got a little bit of like a luminosity to it, but it's also not a weird matte with like a few specks of glitter dusted in. It's a little bit satiny. So I almost picked that one, but I do have a really similar shade in another palette. And I don't think this is quite as unique as I thought it was in terms of other eyeshadow palettes in my collection. So for my favorite shade, I am picking the shade Smoky Pearl, which, speaking of nuanced purples, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's like a taupey brown purple that's also a silver. I've never seen anything else like it. If you wear it with browns, it looks more brown and you can almost see like a hint of gold in the reflect. If you wear it with purple, it looks more purple and you can kind of see silver in the reflect. It's kind of like a chameleon shade in that way. I'm actually gonna swatch that purple from the Flores Story palette next to it just so you have a point of reference. So the shade Magnolia from the Flores Story palette. It's similar, but I just want you to see how non-purple of a purple shade this actually is. The shade Magnolia is also a very nuanced purple, but the shade Smoky Pearl is even more just taupey and unique. So Smoky Pearl from the SeaTalk palette is on the top, and Magnolia from the Flores Story palette is on the bottom. And hopefully you can see when Smoky Pearl is up against a purple, just how unique it is. Because it has that gold and silver in it, it's just so cool. I love it. It's unique, it's flattering, it's very wearable because it leans neutral. It's stunning. For my least favorite shade, I ultimately decided on Sea Spray just because the formula of this one can sometimes trip me up. It's different than the other shimmers in this palette. It's a little bit more thin and a little bit less shiny. It's got a little bit more of like a flatness to it. That doesn't mean it's not still pretty. It's just not quite, it doesn't quite give me everything that I want when I use this shade. I mean, looking at it in the swatch, it looks freaking stunning. So this is kind of actually making me sad now that I picked this as my least favorite because it looks really, really good in the swatch. But hopefully that gives you an idea of how good this palette actually is, that this beautiful thing could be my least favorite shade. I think this one's just more shifty and less glittery or sparkly. If it was shifty and sparkly, I don't know, maybe it would just become too powerful. Maybe we can't have both. And finally, for the palettes that Kaylin and I had in common, we have the What's Up Beauty Geodes palette. Another one of the most beautiful palettes in my collection. So many pretty shades in here, oh my gosh. I was torn for my favorite between Crystal, which is a lot like Moon Magic from the Huda Beauty Rose Quartz, and the shade Earthlike. I ended up going with Earthlike just because it is that little bit more unique. I don't have anything quite like this in any other palettes. This reminds me a little bit of like MAC Blue Brown Pigment if it had even more nuance to it. So it's got that really nice warm sort of rusty base to it, and then it shifts from pinky purple to blue, but it still looks like a neutral on the lids. I don't know, it's just one of those gorgeous like neutrals with a twist kind of shades. Very wearable, very flattering, very cool, and not quite like anything else that I have in my collection. And for my least favorite, again, it's really hard with this palette. I think it just comes down to a taste thing. I picked the shade Citrine, which is sort of like the shade Lemon Pepper from the Avocado Toast palette, which was also my least favorite. This one's definitely better than the shade in the Avocado Toast palette. Absolutely nothing wrong with the shade. I know a lot of people use this shade as an inner corner. I'm just not a huge fan of yellow or yellow golds on me. And this one definitely translates as a yellow, a very bright yellow gold. So that just comes down to my preferences. But overall, stunning palette. Absolutely stunning. So that's it. Those are my most and least favorite shades from 10 palettes out of my collection that my friend Kaylin also has in her collection. I can't wait to go watch her video and see her picks, and I hope you all will go watch her video as well. Give it a like, subscribe, and maybe leave a lovely comment for her. This was so much fun. I loved this video idea. Kaylin gets all the credit for the video idea. Such a fun one and such a fun way to get excited about the makeup that we already have sitting around in our collections by picking things out, swatching them, and just falling back in love with some of my old faves. Hope you all enjoyed this video as well. If you have any of these palettes, I would love to know actually in the comments what your most and least favorite shades in those palettes are. I think it would be really fun to compare all of our answers and see where many of us are alike and where a lot of us are different, because I'm sure a lot of us have completely opposing opinions. That's the beauty and the fun of makeup, that we are all so different and use our makeup differently. I hope you are having a lovely day wherever you are, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!